slow down. Lay your burden down.
Hey, welcome to Divergent Paths with Dan Dunford. My name is Dan Dunford, and today has been a day. It's been weird. It's been a weird week. You know, some really high highs and some really low lows. I don't usually do long intros. I usually get in and get out, introduce the guest, and then get into the interview. But you know, I don't know if that's an option today. I don't think I've ever on one of these podcasts. This is episode 44, I think, and for every week I've done it, I've never really weighed in on anything that wasn't specifically related to my podcast. But this time I'm going to. And obviously I'm recording this right after midnight on Sunday. And, you know, is there really the need for another person to talk about the horrible, heartbreaking events that took place in Orlando earlier today? You know, probably not. You know, there's been piece after piece written on it by far more educated and informed and people than I am, and people who are better at writing than I am. And throughout this week, on television shows and on podcasts, there will be a lot of people talking about it, and maybe those people are better at it than I am. It's just, I gotta say something, because, you know, if you have a forum, why not use it? I don't know. A lot of people have been expressing the fact that they're just at a loss of what to say, what to do. And I'm not the kind of person who ever really writes about stuff on social media. And I think that's kind of what gets on me the most, is this terrible thing happened. And, you know, I'm not the first person to observe this, but everyone seems to rush to social media immediately. And there's all these people saying thoughts and prayers, which, you know, that's great. If you have your beliefs, to, you know, pray if that you think that will do something, or what, you know, I have no issues with that. But that people have been started poking holes in that, though, you know, thoughts and prayers, the hypocrisy of only saying thoughts and prayers, and now that's kind of become the new hip thing to do, is to be the person over here being like, oh, well, thoughts and prayers mean, you know, that's such an easy thing to say. That basically means nothing, especially when it's coming from politicians who are supported by the gun lobby, which that's a whole other can of worms that I probably shouldn't get into. But, you know, so it's, you know, fighting back and forth on social media and on television about, what's the, you know, who looks the best, you know, in responding to a terrible tragedy. Also, and I haven't even mentioned this, and a lot of people aren't mentioning it, but a tragedy that was inflicted on a group of people who have been historically marginalized and terrorized in this country. I mean, it's like, the, you know, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, like, you know, that group has dealt with it so much as it is, and now this, it's horrifying. And, you know, I would just encourage people, if you're listening to this, you know, if you haven't skipped over it, I will, you know, and if you don't want to listen to this, fine, I will put a chapter marking in the episode notes, so you can just skip right to the interview if you want. But if, you know, I would encourage people to donate to causes that are actively involved in helping those affected by this tragedy. Don't just Don't just sit on social media, and don't, yeah, you can change your profile picture and stick a banner on it and say, oh, I support these people, and you can post thoughts and prayers all you want, but you know, even if you're just helping one person, that's worthwhile. If you can make a difference in one person's life by giving just a few dollars, or I don't know, there's like I said, I'm at a loss just like anyone else. I'm trying to figure out myself what I can do from my little apartment in New York. So anyway, there are several places that I've seen where they have set up places to give. I'm not trying to make I personally made a few small donations earlier today. There's one GoFundMe that's been going around. It's easy to find on Google, and I'll pull a link on it. But there's a GoFundMe that is specifically for the victims of the families of the victims of the shooting. But also, I found some people were sharing this around on Twitter. TheCenterOrlando.org is a website you can go to. It's a community center for the LGBT community in Orlando. It's one of the oldest in the country. So, you can donate to them personally. They provide counseling and resources to the LGBTQ community in Orlando. As I'm seeing now, they also have set up a separate GoFundMe for victims of, families of victims and victims of the tragedy. So the point is, I could go on like this for a while, but the point is like, find a cause, and find a way to help and do it. Don't just fight about who we should be blaming on social media, because I've seen so much of that just in the past 15 minutes. Even on Facebook, I almost wrote a big long 2 paragraphs to somebody that I at one point in time very much respected, and you know what, I just didn't. I deleted it all. I thought I was being reasonable, but you know what, is it worth it to get into a fight with someone whose mind you're not going to change? There are other ways to, let me put it this way, there are other ways to go about it. There are more productive people to fight against as a group. Anyway, so said all that, this was also the last thing I will say is, for every download that I get on the show for the next 7 days, so starting Monday, which is when you're listening to this, and ending Sunday, which is June 19th, for that 7-day period, for every download I get, I will be donating $1 to these to these funds set up to help victims of and families of victims of the shootings, and for community centers there in the area. Download this episode, download old episodes. It all goes into the same counter, if you will. It all counts. So download this episode, download all the back episodes. I'm going to be donating $1 for each one of them. I also just set this up. If you go to my website, it's dandunfordtrombone.com/podcast. I now have a donate button for the podcast, because this isn't free. I have expenses that come along with running the podcast, but if you feel this is always going to be free. It's never going to be something that I'm charging for, but if you feel like throwing a few dollars my way, I would really appreciate it. And for the next several weeks, I would imagine I'll donate a portion of anything that comes in through there. I don't imagine it's going to be much, but anything that comes through there, I'll donate a portion of that to these victims as well. Anyway, so this week I was very happy to sit down with the Parhelion Trio, which is a trio of three wonderful musicians, three wonderful ladies, Andrea Christie, Ashlee Miller, and Sarah Carrier. It's flute, clarinet, and piano. Sarah plays the flute, Andrea plays piano, Ashlee plays clarinet, and they make some really great music, do a lot of commissioning. I went to school very briefly with Ashlee, like 6-7 years ago now. I had a really good time talking to them. They were semifinalists at the M competition last month. We talked about that and how that kind of came about. I do say some snarky things about some people. I would like to emphasize that those are my snarky comments and in no way represent Parhelion Trio as a group. So if you want to come after someone for being snarky, come after me, which shouldn't be that hard. So yeah, Parhelion, really fun group, really good music. And on the end of the episode today, is a recording of them performing a piece called Techno-Parade by Guillaume Connesson. So I hope you enjoy that. And if you enjoy the episode, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. And as of 5 or 6 days ago, the podcast is also on Google Play Music. So if you subscribe to Google Play Music, I don't know if anyone does. I think some people must, or else it wouldn't exist. But so yeah, anyway, if you subscribe to Google Play or use Google Play, the podcast is also on there. Divergent Paths with Dan Dunford. And also let me know what you think. Shoot me an email. My email is divergentpathspod@gmail.com. Or if you know someone who might be great on the podcast, let me know. Facebook, email, whatever. Call me. I'm sure someone can give you my number. It's weird. Anyway, so don't forget, for every download this next 7-day period, I'll be donating $1 to victims of the tragedy in Orlando. So I hope that will be a decent amount of money that I can do. Anyway, tell someone you love them. All right, talk to you next week.
Slow down.
I thought after 2 weeks the coughing from the smoking would go away, but it hasn't. I just quit.
Just 2 weeks?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Congrats.
I guess. Hopefully it'll take this time. Quit before.
Are you,
So quitting like
vaping at
cold
all,
turkey or?
No.
Yeah.
That's too expensive. Like all of it's too expensive. Like vaping
Vaping's a lot cheaper.
Vaping might be, but it's still a lot up front.
Sure.
Like for all the equipment, I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I don't want to look like a tool.
I don't know. I thought that trend would just like go away. but
Yeah,
it's
right.
Totally
Nope,
exploded.
not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw someone bust one of those out in a bar. I'm like, you are like such a tool. Like you think, oh, you could just publicly,
There were some kids on they have all the flavors too, right? There were some kids that
Yeah.
busted up on the subway and they're right beside me. I was like, oh my gosh. And I couldn't wait to get off at the next stop. It was filling the car and
There's a couple. When I was still a student, there was a couple. There's one professor who would vape while teaching. So I'm like, okay,
here?
yeah. It was great.
That's
I loved it.
hilarious.
I
That's
thought it
kind
was.
of
I
awesome.
thought it was really funny. But also, like the funny thing is like I noticed a lot of guys, musicians and like brass players, whatever, who vape. Also, like whenever I would be outside smoking, they'd like bum one off of me, like because
They
You can
secretly
vape all you
want-
want, but like you're still not going to get the kick from like actually
Yeah.
putting poison in your lungs.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. It's so good. It's so expensive and it kills me, but I love it. It's hard. I'm having a hard time. Anyway, I'm glad we spent 3 minutes talking about that. Parhelion Trio. Yes?
Yes.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
We
Absolutely.
sometimes go back and forth over the pronunciation still, but
Oh,
yeah,
wait,
you're
there's a
right.
controversy.
No, it's just,
controversy. I can't pronounce anything.
When you hear so many people mispronounce your group's name,
Mm-hmm.
so many times you start like questioning your own pronunciation of the group. Is it Parhelion or Parhelion? Well, I'm pretty sure it's Parhelion. I think
Okay.
we nailed it down.
Well, that's good that you actually are sure about the pronunciation of your group's name.
Recently
That's
we
a
had someone
big
say,
start.
is it Parhelion? Like, that would be so awesome. Like, Hellion. Like, yeah.
I was like, oh shoot, maybe. Yeah.
Well, that's fair, I guess. What are the Hellions? They're like. Anyway.
Sounds like
not
a motorcycle gang or something.
It's much worse than that. Anyway, thank you for agreeing to sit down with me. I appreciate it.
Of course, thanks for having us.
So I always do this with groups, but we're going to do like voice samples for each
Sure.
person. So here on the left, my left.
Hi, my name is Sarah Carrier, and I'm the flutist of Parhelion Trio.
My name is Andrea Christie, and I'm the pianist of Parhelion.
My name is Ashlee Miller, and I'm the clarinetist in Parhelion.
Awesome. Hopefully that all works out. Hopefully everyone doesn't sound the same, except for me, I guess. But I'm glad we could work this out. I very briefly was a student at Manus at the same time as Ashlee. Very briefly, like
Yep.
for a year. So
It's a good year.
so good. It's funny, like people that I knew from my very first year, like who all left. I'm starting to like play concerts with them. A lot of them again, but just like for money instead of for no money. instead of paying to play concerts with them, now I'm being paid to play concerts with them. It's great. It's like, oh man, I haven't played a concert with you like since like 2010. This is really cool. Anyway, so I know you guys have been together for a few years now. The origin was what year? 2000.
Well, Andrea and I. This is Sarah speaking.
It's okay. Like you don't have to keep identifying yourself. That'll be fine.
Okay. Well, we met in 2010. We were participating at the Institute and Festival for Contemporary Performance at
Here
the
at
Manus
Manus.
School. Yeah, back at the old location. And we actually weren't playing in an ensemble together, but we decided that we wanted to continue playing together, or to begin playing together after the festival, and we did that. And a few years ago, 2013, we invited Ashlee to our group.
That's
and
right.
Now we are complete.
That's right. Yeah, it was actually a very fortuitous invite. I went to school with Sarah, and we took a class together, and that was the 20th Century Performance class.
With
was that right?
Ursula Oppens and Jason Eckert.
That's right, yeah. And I heard Sarah play, was it Carter's flute piece? Which one did you do?
Scrivo Inventum.
Scrivo, that's right. And wow, that was just amazing. And then I said yes.
Well, and then we played a Carter piece together.
That's right.
What is that piece called? The duo.
Esprit Rude et Doux?
Yeah,
Yes.
the one with percussion, because there's
The second one.
2 versions. Yeah.
The second one.
Second one.
It was fun.
So if you know a lot about Carter, you'll hopefully follow that.
We all had very strong first impressions of each other's playing. I think that's what brings people together. You find people who are like-minded, people who say, hey, I think I can work out something really interesting with this person. Let's see what we can explore. And
You really don't know until you start playing with each other, and then you see if it works.
And it takes a long time to figure out how to work with the intricacies of different people's playing. It just takes a while, and you like, even if you're like friends or like blown away, like great virtuosos don't always make for great virtuosic ensemble playing. Like obviously each individual part can be stupendous, but when it comes to putting it together, just because you're world renowned doesn't mean you're good at playing with others.
True.
In fact, many times if you're a world renowned solo type person, you are not good at playing with others. In every sense of the word, musical and non-musical.
Right. You must bend to me all of the time.
Well, since we're talking about origins, what is the origin of the name? Like, I'm not sure
Actually, we were, it took a while to find a name, and
you gotta find something that feels right.
And we were doing a lot of brainstorming, just writing down every...
We brainstormed for weeks.
Every silly thing that came up.
Every time we would rehearse in a coffee shop and see how many names can we come up with.
Yeah, and I was actually Googling this group called the Phenomenon of Three, or Phenomenon of Threes, that Esther Lamnick and Keith Underwood and Martha Locker were in the same instrumentation as that. I was just looking for recordings, and actually when I typed in Phenomenon of Three, the first thing that came up was the Parhelion effect, which is the phenomenon involving, where it appears that there's three suns on the horizon. I was like, that's a freaking awesome name.
Wait, hold on. I am not familiar with this. What is it?
So it's an atmospheric phenomenon that generally occurs in colder climates very far north. And it appears that there's three suns on the horizon.
Right, you have these two little bright spots beside the sun.
That's awesome.
So it looks like three suns.
That's sort of like...
And it's an atmospheric phenomenon. It's caused by the refraction of light through these crystals that are high up in the atmosphere.
Huh.
And it causes a distortion. I personally haven't seen it, but I see people go farther north, it's apparently much, much more common.
That's awesome.
Also called the sundog.
Yeah, also called the sundog.
Yep.
The Sundog?
Sundog.
And you didn't go with that as your name?
Well, that's our alter ego name.
Yeah.
We actually have a piece.
That's when you
composed
play
for us.
rock covers. You're
Yeah,
doing,
yeah. Like we
Sundog.
actually have a piece composed for us called Sundog.
Oh, that's cool.
So.
That works. That's cool. That makes sense. Oh, that's really cool. So which one of you is the actual sun?
I know.
Which one's the bright one?
I always joke that it's a
let's
piano
fight.
because they're like an item.
Yeah.
But
Well, actually,
you can
on
see
stage, like Andrea is always sort of in the center,
Oh, okay.
so it kind of works.
Oh, I was hoping that there would be like more infighting over that.
Yeah.
Come on, controversy is what sells, people. No, but so is this the setup, the flute, clarinet, piano setup? Is that a common one? Is there a lot of rep for that?
it's not super unusual. Like some trios, you're like, how did that happen? But it's
yeah.
but it's not your traditional. When you say piano trio, people generally assume violin, cello, and piano. And there's so many other combinations out there. It's common enough that there are some little 19th century gems written for us. But they're a little cheesy, and there aren't so many of them out there. That was the first thing we discovered when we're like, well, what can we play? What's out there?
What you're telling me that there's a lot of cheesy music from the 19th century? I don't believe you.
I say cheesy because there are no large sonatas or really like meaty pieces written for our combination from the 19th century. A traditional trio. There's Mendelssohn, there's Beethoven. They have all of this fantastic established repertoire, and I feel like all of the pieces written for us are little miniatures.
Right,
Or played,
like
they're like
piece of-
cutesy salon pieces.
Right, like our originating piece for this instrumentation is Sanson's Tarantella.
Right.
So we're
That's what
working on building our.
Well, I mean, that's like, in some ways that can be really great for an ensemble starting out, because, I mean, sure, like you can start with those pieces, but you burn through them so quickly
Right.
that you immediately have to be thinking
Absolutely.
forward. You can't. There are so many great string quartets, but like you can. What was the name of this quartet that just won the inaugural big competition?
Calidor.
Yeah. And they won the supposedly new forward-thinking artist competition by playing 150-year-old music, which I'm sure that they're an incredible string quartet.
Yeah, we were there.
Exactly.
We were actually there.
Right?
Exactly. So there's I'm not taking anything away from
Yeah.
what they're doing, but I'm using it to illustrate the point that as a string quartet, you can literally make your entire career never play anything later than 1900. And I read it from the Detroit Free Press. The interviewer asked them, if they do any contemporary music and they're like, oh yeah, we did Webern this morning
Right.
from 1909, which I thought was funny.
Cute. Well,
But all of this to say that it keeps, you have to, with a lack of music, you have to continuously be thinking forward about what you're going to do next, whether that's commissions, whether that's arranging. And it can be hard, but it also can foster like really rapid musical growth. You know, how have you approached that, you know, finding and putting together new music for yourselves?
With our friends. So we've asked a couple of friends and they've managed, you know, to come up with something for us. But we've been really honored to be working with the Flute Duo Consortium, which commissions every year a new work by a composer. This year it's Pierre Jalbert. And apparently it's being sent to us soon.
It's on the way.
It's on the way? Yes.
Checks in the mail.
and sometimes like one of our friends will have a piece that's like almost for our combination. Like
Right.
Daniel Felsenfeld had a piece that was for a flute, piano, and oboe.
Oboe. Mhm.
And so the oboe part we managed to make into a clarinet part. But it's a great, it's a fun piece. 'Cause
High
it's
range
with
clarinet and
narrator
high range oboe are basically the same, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Same sound.
So
Do you do your own transcriptions as well, or do you?
Andrea, you did
Yeah.
a transcription for us.
We've dabbled in it a little, and that's what we've been talking about next. We're a little bit of a hybrid ensemble, and I think we enjoy that. We don't fit into any particular category. We're not this cookie cutter ensemble. We sort of straddle a bit of a divide. Most of our repertoire is new music, but we do, because of the nature of our instruments, I mean, piano, flute, and clarinet, we're in a bit of a different category, well, a completely different category than, say, a percussion ensemble or a saxophone quartet where they're just looking at basically 20th century and 21st century rep. We do have some traditions to pull from and some choices to make. And there are some very beautiful sonorities in addition to all these really awesome sounds and sonorities we can get in our combination. We have done some Brahms transcriptions and arrangements of Hungarian dances. We've
The Debussy.
we have a arrangement of Debussy. It's not ours, but it's by Michael Webster, who's also part of a fantastic trio of the same instrumentation, and he's adapted quite a few pieces by piano forehands as well for flute, piano, and clarinet, and so that's added actually quite a bit to the body of instrumentation and repertoire for an ensemble. You've used that a little bit as a launching point, like the Debussy. That's our like traditional rep. So often we like to open a concert program with that or put it early on, and then we just branch out from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how suddenly a composer like Debussy, that was just so cutting edge, 100 plus, just over 100 years ago, can suddenly seem like maybe we view Bach or Beethoven today, and we're like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
we've really come a long way.
And a composer like Debussy wrote, as a trombonist, I don't have a whole lot to draw from with older music, but he wrote so many great sonorities and pieces for the three of your instruments, while maybe not necessarily together. Like it's a musical language that fits very well for, when you put the three of them together, I would imagine. I would imagine.
Very much.
Better than like me trying to play. No, it works. It's fine. It's interesting trying to find things to play on trombone. Like there's so many pieces that I just like, and I'm like, oh, I'll play that. You guys can deal. If you don't like hearing a trombonist play your rep, too bad. I'm doing it. Saint-Saëns clarinet is one of my favorites.
Yep,
Like,
I remember
really
you
like
practicing. I think I
I really like that. Anyway, so do all three of you live and play in New York, right? No, yes,
We do,
maybe.
yes.
Yeah, we all live in different boroughs, though.
Yeah, we meet in the middle.
We meet in at the Graduate Center usually because it's centrally located.
all the trends.
I was super late today because Brooklyn was a mess.
Yeah, I'm so
And,
glad I don't live in
was
Brooklyn.
used and abused by the subway system today. But I got here. Took the most bizarre route, though.
This is something that is in a lot of cases ensembles are born out of like school friendships, especially with traditional ensemble school friendships, or a lot of times being in the same orchestra or in the same small region of the country. But the three of you all have like your own separate careers. And Ashlee's been working on her doctorate for the past several years, right?
Done,
You
yeah.
finished. Well,
Yeah.
we're working on it for the
We're
past
working.
several years, and now you finished. And like everyone has their own like freelance stuff, teaching, etc., etc. So when it comes to finding the time to like still forge a musical identity in addition to everything else you're doing, like how do you individually balance that, ensemble and trying to like push forward musically?
You have to always remember to
artistically.
maintain yourself
Yeah.
too, because it's very easy to, if we're preparing for a big goal up ahead, you get used to really hashing out the same works over and over, and it's easy to get off track a little bit with your normal like tonal development stuff, technique, just maintaining yourself. So it's something we've all had to balance.
But when you've been together for so long, you start to really identify with the unit, the Parhelion, as a single entity. I mean, you sort of mesh into the same identity, and sometimes it is a struggle to develop your individual career, because I think we've all prioritized. We do other things outside, but when we look to the next seasons or next projects, we have to put Parhelion a little bit above everything else. Otherwise, it'll never rise to the top. There are other things that will always pop up. So it's a matter of setting. We're all here for the same reason, and we'd like to see this go somewhere. What can we do to make that happen?
I was last October or November. I was speaking to one of the guys who founded Load Bang, which is fairly successful, quite successful new music group here in the city, and he was talking about like the idea of having to, guess what? You're gonna have to turn down paying gigs to do something that doesn't pay,
Yep.
and that's
Right.
how it goes. If you want,
all the time.
it's a real struggle, especially in New York. We're all struggling in some way or another. I mean, we all have to worry about where the next rent check is coming from. I know I do, at least. maybe you guys are set. But it's really, it can really be easy to fall into a mindset of, the most important thing is making sure I get the dollars for what I'm doing. That's the number one priority. And when it comes to starting a group, that can't be the first priority. Like a great group with a great artistic vision, the priority can't be, at least initially, and really never, the money can't be the overarching and driving factor. It has to be the music.
We agree
Yeah,
with that.
absolutely. Yeah.
But that does mean, maybe like, it's going to be a little tight every month, every once in a while, as opposed, I had to turn down this to do that, because I have to do this.
Very often with concert dates, we all have 3 completely different work schedules where we quite frequently have to take time off to do our concerts, and that we try to plan them far enough in advance so we can get subs for our teaching gigs or our orchestra jobs or wherever we're working at the time.
So, what do the three of you do individually as far as like all the bulk of your like freelancing or teaching careers?
I think we all have some part in educating, and I am a lecturer at St. Joseph's College in Brooklyn. I teach basically music 101, like appreciation, and then I usually have some other kind of class that I teach. Like this coming semester will be history of the symphony, and last semester was postmodern music. Very
Ooh.
exciting.
That does sound exciting.
Yeah, especially when your students don't have any knowledge of music history to begin with.
Ooh, even better. And they're just, it's like a bunch of hipsters being like, oh yeah, postmodern sounds so great.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
So I'm split in between 3 teaching jobs. I'm a lecturer at Adelphi University. I teach a keyboard class over there. I teach in the West Village, actually close by here, at the Greenwich House Music School. And I also teach at a music school in Flushing called the Herald Music School. So
You spend a lot of time on the train.
every day I'm somewhere different. And then right now we're in the middle of NISMA season. I'm also a NISMA adjudicator. So
Okay.
they often want you to go upstate. I mean, several hours. I try to keep it local. But there's always something interesting around the corner.
I teach at Hunter College and College of Staten Island. So I'm still in the CUNY system, even though I'm out of the CUNY system.
It never lets you out.
Managed
It
to
never
stay.
lets you out.
Similar to Mana. So,
Seriously.
and I teach. So I teach there. I also run my own private studio of kids after school. So that's what kind of helps, pay the rent and also build connections. Otherwise, just practicing and I write a lot about Charles Ives. That's what my dissertation's on, and we're trying to get some publications out of it. So,
as an ensemble unit, is using ensemble as a tool for education part of like what you're really shooting for, or is it? I mean, every ensemble to some extent deals with education, but some are more geared towards that than others. How do you see using the trio as an educational tool in addition to like an artistic outlet?
I mean, that's something that we see us incorporating more as we progress, but I think that right now we're mainly just about creating new music for our instrumentation.
And we actually, speaking of which, it's funny you mentioned it, we did the New York Philharmonic Bridge program
Right,
as
so
a
we have
trio
done a little bit of
outreach.
What? Okay. I can't keep track of all of the Philharmonics and Carnegie, like all these like these
Subsets,
all
yes.
these educational programs that are based out of like those two like the whether it's the Met or the Philharmonic or Carnegie Hall, like there's so many education programs that they all just kind of like.
Right. So Ashlee and I are frequently involved with the New York Philharmonic's Very Young Composers program, and so we do demos of our instruments and end of the semester concerts where we play the young composers' music. But recently, the three of us got asked to play together for the Bridge program, which is like the top kids. They're like in middle school and really, well, they're pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Adorable, but very impressive.
That's but still adorable. I mean,
Yeah.
Of course.
It's like those kids who
Little
win the.
Doogie Howsers.
It's like those kids that won the spelling bee. Those two kids
Oh,
who won
right.
the spelling bee this year.
Totally.
I was just watching. God, this is gonna make me sound like a 45-year-old woman. I was watching Kelly Ripa this morning while I was getting ready to leave, and they were both on there, and they're like the most adorable kids I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, point is, children geniuses. Was that like a rewarding experience for you guys as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's great. These kids work really hard on their compositions. I think they have they have a few projects, I think, in a term, and we were one of them. So we come in and, often they're writing for every group they write for. I mean, it's the first time they're writing for this instrumentation, so they're exploring a lot, and they don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to come out, but you can see. It's interesting. We would play each composition twice. We play it once, and then there's a period where we get feedback. We get feedback from the composer who wrote it, from the other kids in the class, and it was really nice to see. After the first time, they were just so happy with the performance. They often have a couple little suggestions, but just to be able to get their ideas out there for us to be able to do something with it, and for them to learn and feed off of each other is just it's a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I was actually shocked by sort of the imagination of each child. Yeah, we can't go into specific details about it, but but to sort of give an example, we played a piece and we get the music and the title of it's called Fire. And we're expecting something like super loud or bombastic, and we start playing it and it's like little flickers of like almost candlelight, and it was just amazing that. They took a totally different perspective, and they were able to explain their pieces to us.
Oh, yeah.
There was an
That was
electroacoustic piece that we played too, where the student was inspired by some reading that he had to do for like that horrible state testing that all kids have to do. There was a poem about like these horses ponies being overworked. And
no!
Yeah,
That's depressing.
And then,
Does the kid live on 57th Street?
And I had to narrate, and it's really quite clever.
So you spoke about like working with composers to other older composers to create rep specifically for yourself. Now, recently, it's 2 months ago now. Jesus. I've been talking to Ashlee about doing this for 3 months now. I can't it's just the spring has gone by so quickly. To the point where I wasn't even upset that not that I would be upset. I'm always grateful whenever people can come talk to me. But sometimes it's a little tough scheduling, and it's May, really? And then May was here. I was like, oh, okay. I can't even be mad because I wouldn't have had time to do anything last month either. Anyway, all of that to say that. So you did National Sawdust is this cool newish. It's a year old, right?
Yeah.
It opened in October.
Really? So it's this cool new venue. You guys did a big concert. I mean, I was there for the first time, I think, a month and a half ago. It's really weird. It's where did all the money come from to make this weird classical music venue? Everyone it looks really expensive. Mm-hmm. Anyway, all to say, so you guys did a show out there recently, so we can kind of maybe use that as an example of how you put together programs for yourselves. Fair.
Sure.
So how did you for this is that's an important show. It's at a cool venue. So how did you put together the program for something like that, and how do you generally do things like that?
Oh, let's see. Can't even remember.
Yeah,
what we did.
2 months ago. I'm asking you to.
Did we start with Techno-Parade?
Well, I guess to answer the programming question, I mean, we tried to pick pieces that, well, of course, for musical merit, but Daniel Felsenfeld was curating that concert, and we, of course, wanted to include him, and he narrated his own work from Maldoror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's less of a specific, what exactly did you do for this concert, but kind of an example.
Not a storyline, but definitely a flow, so it's an experience. Listening to a really great album where there's
highs and lows, and at what point we want to increase intensity, at what point do we want to chill out a little, and we don't
give your face a rest.
Well, that's a big factor for them as well. There's certain pieces that only work at the end of a half. There's something right. We decided to end that program with Philip Glass music in fifths. Ooh. And for us it was a bit of an experimentation. We'd never ended a program with that before. It has a different impact in every single space we perform. So it was a bit of a risk, but when it ended up turning out really well, it worked just fantastically for the space, and we were like, well, yeah, we need to do this more often.
Programming is such an art form that a lot of classical musicians just don't get. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
You look at so many recitals, and you're like, did you even think about this? Right. Did you think about, are you just putting four pieces together on a program because you can play them? There's so much more to everything than just...
We spend a lot of time, rehashing,
I'm a big hip-hop fan, so yeah, it's you have to put together a recital someone puts together, a really great mixtape.
Totally.
Because otherwise, people just lose, it's so easy, it's a really fine tightrope walk to go up to the line of pushing it too far and then pulling people back in. It's keep them engaged, then let them chill out. But always the ending a recital, ending on something super hype, which for classical musicians can be Philip Glass. It's really, that's not written for this instrumentation, is it?
It's flexible. It's
okay.
Flexible.
Yeah.
Oh.
There are two lines.
You can totally do it. Yeah, trombone, sure.
So anyway, yeah, this, I said, this wasn't really specifically what did you do for that concert, but you kind of using that as an example of how you use your music to speak to an audience,
Well, one thing we've been doing is memorizing our pieces.
What? No,
and
don't do that. That's
so,
crazy.
like that's something that helps us connect more with the audience. Just getting rid of the music stands and interacting more
It's
with
been
each
a
other.
big part of our evolution as an ensemble.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps with the music making because instead of
Yeah.
questioning myself as like, is it that run? I've played it, for the 765th time, but
Are those 30-second notes right?
yeah,
I don't know.
is this the right speed? I don't know. There's something about it that it's more importantly of when it's something's gonna happen, something's coming out, but when when it happens. So by getting rid of the music stand, I can actually look at Andrea's at her arms, and I can look at Sarah's finger, and I'm like, oh, it's going down. It's going down.
Ashley's always watching my fingers. Like it might look like she's giving me eye contact, but she's really looking at my
She's
fingers.
like really trying to groove. It's like
We have
no.
a triangle of cues going on. Ashley's
Yeah.
watching Sarah's fingers, Sarah's watching mine. I'm
yeah,
hopping
I'm
back
always
and
looking
forth
at her
between both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, obviously it helps with music making, but when you're like playing without musical expression, like you can tune in so much on such a deeper level to what people are saying musically, obviously with what they're doing with their lines. But if there's also like you're saying, like that having that safety net there can also help with like super intricate passages. Like it's hard because when it's like things that are intricate and like fitting together like really tightly, it can be like a little bit nerve-wracking to do that without like the safety net there. I
At
mean,
first,
Well, a lot of
most
I've
definitely.
been asked many times, like, don't you get more anxious playing without the music? And, I actually sometimes feel more anxious with the music. Namely, I had an iPad incident where the Bluetooth between my iPad and the pedal stopped working the moment before I had to go on stage. And I didn't have that piece or those pieces memorized yet. So the whole concert, I'm just like having a complete anxiety attack in my head, but somehow like it all works.
yeah,
concert.
it's funny. Like, oh god, the last 2 recitals I've done these really complicated arrangements with
Yeah.
with like really long. Like the last one I did was at like an hour, straight up hour music, one piece. It's like an hour's. I cut like the Bernstein Mass down from an hour and 45 minutes down to an hour and did this huge arrangement of it. But like I'm dealing with like this huge binder of music.
Right.
And like the page turns to make it like easier to read, I did it all off like a piano vocal score. But it made for really difficult page turns and like really complicated systems. And like my teacher is like yelling at me. He's like, dude, you can't do this. Like you're going to screw it up in the recital. And he was kind of right. Like when it came to it, I was just like super tense about making sure I set up the pages right. And and then I still fucked it up. So, yeah, there's when it comes to that kind of thing, whether you're using an iPad, I try to only use iPads I use iPads in rehearsal,
Yeah.
or large ensembles where it doesn't matter.
Oh, right.
Like an orchestra concert, I'm always gonna have enough rest to just turn pages with my
I was
finger.
reading off of scores, so there are page turns like every
Yeah.
5 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the worst. But yeah,
But there's also something, when you're talking about the, to play with music or without music, and this idea of a safety net. And quite honestly, if I'm put in that situation where, am I going to worry about the notes, or am I really going to worry about being with them? You know,
well, they like after a while they become your safety net.
that's right.
They
Oh,
really
yeah.
are.
Yeah,
we
we
know each
are.
other's parts better
Yeah.
than we ever would without memorizing.
And sometimes we jump and loop. Like,
Oh,
Andrea will take another exit, and
If
we'll
one of us does something a little different, one of those pieces that you have these cells that are constantly evolving, and sometimes, right, they different exits, different entrances, and it's funny what the experience orally will happen. It doesn't matter which one of us does it. The other is sometimes it's just intuitively we jump along and we realize that we've skipped a whole section, but it happened together.
And sometimes these blips are so subtle that you can't even hear them in
Well, yeah.
recordings, which
I
I
mean,
know that happens a lot.
9 times out of 10. Well, actually, I would say 99 times out of 100, the people in the audience, they don't. I mean, especially with you guys, like they're not going to know the music ahead of time. Maybe one of the transcriptions they might know, maybe, but they're probably not going to know the piece. And if it sounds good and you make a great musical statement, it doesn't matter when it comes down to it. I mean,
Right.
it matters. It matters, but doesn't matter.
No, we're definitely not. I mean, I don't know. Are we perfectionists? Or we kind of are, but
Are
like,
you
but at the
perfectionists
same
or are you
time,
musicians? That's the real
Yeah,
question.
there we go.
That's a whole other
I
can
mean,
of worms.
we can, let go of the fact that things aren't always going to be perfect, but I think we strive
Of course,
pretty far.
you want to
from it, like-
strive for that perfect musical statement, but sometimes the greatest musical statements come out of imperfections.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's because of like a sudden burst of energy,
Mm-hmm.
nervous,
Panic.
adrenaline energy, you might get something crazy out of something that you would never have gotten had you just played everything perfectly. Anyway, so as a unit, like you guys have background, obviously, are your backgrounds individually in chamber music or more like in a solo orchestral sense? Obviously piano works differently. It just does. I mean, there are pianists who specialize in playing orchestral
Right.
music, because that does come up a bit. Like what are your how has your focus shifted from those original like viewpoints in coming to create a totally different type of sound? What are the challenges that you've faced and that kind of a deal.
Questions.
So all the questions, like there's so many ways you could go, and I'll be happy with any of them.
Well, I moved to New York from Southern California knowing that I wanted to study with Robert Dick, and I ended up doing my master's and my doctorate studying with him, and so I was really focused on soloistic flute playing, exploring extended techniques, and I was also very much looking for more chamber music experience. Previously I was really more of a classical flutist. I had all the orchestral excerpts memorized and I was sort of on that track, but then
How many times are you going to practice one? Like all of them?
Yeah, and then all it took was hearing one of Robert Dick's albums and realizing how much sound possibilities are out there.
There's more than orchestral playing. It's crazy.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, when I was in North Carolina growing up, I went to North Carolina School of the Arts, and I was like...
Oh, you're one of those.
Oh,
people.
yeah, totally. But, I was a soloist. I, played with North Carolina Symphony. I was touring around, and, solo was sort of my thing. I was on From the Top, doing Brahms. I mean, it was just...
What year were you on
solo
From the
stuff.
Top?
Oh, man.
2006. Yeah, there's like a 98% chance that I heard you play, because I listen to that thing. My parents made me listen to that every week. Let's put it that way. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, so, it was funny because I came to New York and I was like, solo would be great. And then I met some really fantastic soloists from all over the world, and, some good friends of mine who studied with Charles Niditch, who I studied with. And, I was just sort of amazed, but I was really amazed at what the clarinet could do that I'd never been exposed to in really contemporary music, and how, the clarinet can make really cool effects and sounds, and it doesn't always have to be in the box. I don't. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And I love playing in orchestras for quite some time, but then I found out I didn't like to be told really how to play my line every single time I opened up and let expression take over. And so I don't know, I guess once I hit the doctoral path, I had finished at Mannes, so I was no longer playing in the Mannes Orchestra and the New York Youth Symphony. I was no longer doing any of that, and it gets lonely. And you can always play solo stuff, and you'll always be by yourself, and you feel that you've made a statement, but there's something about having that collaboration that's really valuable and gives meaning, and it I don't know, it gives you a sense of perspective of where you are and where to grow. I tell you, I
really
grow
pushes
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
I grow so much from Sarah and Andrea, just playing with them and seeing what they're doing. And Sarah will take a phrase, we'll have the same thing, we'll have totally different interpretations, we'll argue for 5 minutes, and then we'll decide. And but that's one thing I really like about our group is we all have very different backgrounds, and we're very different people. Yet we find common ground, and it's that process that is really valuable. And I think that's where we grow the most.
Right. I like that in a trio we all bring our different experiences and our experiences as soloists and also chamber musicians to the table. I also, like Ashlee, began thinking, with the mindset of a soloist. I went to college thinking I'm going to be a concert pianist. I'll play lots of concertos. I'll do some chamber music. And it's really interesting that the more you're exposed to, the more you realize, like what Ashlee emphasized, first of all, it can be a little lonely being in a practice room with your piano for so many hours a day. But
I mean, you're going to do that regardless. But yeah. Like,
and as a trio, we spend so much I spend half my time playing with them. It really changes the balance in the practice in the studio. You're not spending 90% of your day alone. You're spending half your day working out some of the issues that you've discovered on your own, but then seeing, how does this work in the ensemble? And I can't say how much, it's difficult to express to the degree that how enjoyable it is and how much you grow from that. It's just on a different level than working by yourself all the time. You're exposed to so many new ideas and so many different ways of thinking about a particular musical problem.
You think about like soloists, piano soloists, instrumental soloists. I remember, I was reading a biography of Van Cliburn from, I don't know, this was like 10 years ago. I was reading this, and every season, every solo season or whatever, a pianist will you might know there's hundreds of piano concertos, far more concertos than are for any other instrument, which is great. You have a lot to choose from, but because of that, almost everything you've done or you'll be doing has been done before, hundreds of times, better or worse, whatever it is. But even so, these soloists, they'll have, they might know all of these concertos, but every season you're spending all of your time with 3, 4, 5 maybe, the same 5 concertos, and then you spend a year, straight up a year, 2 years of your life just performing these 4 pieces with different orchestras, whether touring around. And that's just, I mean, come on, how many times are you going to do Rachmaninoff 2 before you want to murder someone or yourself? That's pretty dark, but I mean, and some people love it, and people are always going to get up for those pieces. People are always going to be stoked for another performance of the Emperor Concerto. Come on, man. Or the Mozart Clarinet Concerto. I mean, come on, or Copland, whatever. Whatever it is, people are generally gonna be up for that. But as a performer, it seems like that would eventually stunt your musical growth. And of course that's not to say anything poor about any soloist, because they're really great at what they do. But just from a musical growth standpoint, at some point, don't you have to, for your own sanity, have to branch out from that? Anyway, that was a long monologue by me. So, but I can do that because it's my show. But then I run into the problems of talking myself into a corner and not knowing how to get out of it.
Well, you do have to make a negotiation as a performer. How much are you playing for yourself and how much are you playing for your audience? Because you want to encourage people to come back. So I think we do a pretty good job of balancing our program so that there's a little bit of something for people who may not normally go to classical music concerts at all, but also throw in a couple of unusual tastes, just little sprinklings of things that they might normally not come for.
Absolutely. And we like to also incorporate pieces that are by our friends, because they often come, and we can introduce them, and to someone who's not an avid concert goer, to meet a real living composer and hear their work.
It's such a,
nice.
The community musicians in New York can be such just a fun group of people to be a part of, and just playing with your friends, playing your friends' music, because there's so many talented people, and so many people who deserve more money than they make, I'm sure. You know what I mean? So it's just a real fun thing to be able to do, to have access. Each one of us knows dozens of composers that we could if they have the time, and or I have the money, we can like do something, you know, and it's really rewarding to do that, and there's not very many places where you have that opportunity. If I was in Augusta, like, what would I do? Like, nothing. Work at a Barnes and Noble, probably. Play one concert a year. So you do have to, because the audience, they're the consumer, right? So you do have to give the consumer what they paid for. In something that's a very capitalistic way to look at an art form, which doesn't always bode well for the art form. But when it comes down to it, you want people to come back. So, like, and new music, for all its wonders, and can be prickly.
We've all been to concerts where the performers, even as someone who plays a lot of new music, like the performers are maybe really just playing for themselves.
And there's not necessarily a problem with that.
I know, but it's nice to feel invited.
Yes. It really, especially if you're paying money.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm paying $25 to see someone play, I'm like, throw me a bone.
Yeah, like we've all been a captive audience. It's fun.
It sounded like you were saying captive in a bad way.
What did I mean?
Yeah, so how do you like look at, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with playing pieces for yourself, like
of
performing
course.
pieces for
Right.
yourself.
We always do.
I think there's definitely a balance to be struck there, because I think we, all three of us, strongly feel that if we are very passionate about what we do, we feel that will always be communicated to the audience. And then if we were to put together an entire program just based on what we think people want, I don't think that would be as effective as doing things that we're passionate about. We're going to put all our 110% of ourselves into, and then figure out at that stage, how do we interact with the audience with what we've created, and how can we bring both sides together?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about aesthetics, that's kind of what we're looking at. You present a diverse program. Someone's going to love this piece, hate this piece. Someone's going to love the piece they hated, and then it's a toss up in many ways. So yeah, I think what Andrew is saying is right. We have a passion. We've created this idea, this program, this not program in the sense of there's a storyline, but a program in a sense there's an idea and inspiration for what we're trying to go towards and project. And as long as we stay true to that, we could argue that the audience did get what they paid for if we played to the best of our abilities.
Sometimes we're surprised the piece that we think is the strangest one, or like the one that's not gonna go down as well, is the one that everyone comes up to us afterwards like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah. I love that. So
well, when it comes like down to what you're selling on stage, like, yeah, the music is important, but you're also selling yourselves and saying, this is what I believe in, and here's why you should care. And if you do that, like, it can be the weirdest off the wall. If you do it right, like, the weirdest off the wall, most difficult to stomach sometimes. Yeah. The most difficult piece can become accessible to even the most, and I don't say this in a pejorative sense, but the most uneducated listener. They can still access it because of how you're presenting it, as opposed to just going to a concert where they're like, someone like is throwing stuff at a wall and is like, I don't care if you like it or not, here it is.
Well, we saw we already mentioned the M-Prize finals. We saw the Yarn Wire.
M-Prize, right? Yes. Yeah, Yarn Wire. They're like the crazy percussion group, right? Yeah, that are like super dope.
Oh, definitely, they're amazing. But it kind of goes to that. I'll never forget that. The first piece they played, they actually they had some buzzing stuff go on, but at one point they all just hit a note, and it was just was it a note? Was it really pitched? And you just sit and it kind of just sat there, and it was just one attack, and it was so amazing because you knew that they had thought out how long it was going to resonate, how they wanted it to sparkle. So it wasn't just the attack being immaculately together, but it was allowing it to ring, not moving. And it was something so simple. And so, I don't know, it gave it such...
But it was how they performed it. You know, it wasn't... It could have just sounded like a regular old downbeat, or it could have visually looked like a downbeat, but instead it looked like it came from like a horizontal... It was really hard to explain what I mean, but it was just like they felt it in their bodies and were not counting, which of course that would be really... you know, not as effective if...
It comes from a more organic, emotional place than from a, this is where this note goes, and this is where this note goes, and this is how long it lasts, and this is how music is. Autograph.
But,
well, not a literal graph, even though that does exist, but...
yeah, the Empire, so that was a crazy experience.
We were semifinalists, so
yeah.
I didn't realize that you were taking part in that competition. That's like something I should have known.
Yeah, it's
no
okay.
worries.
It was a great experience. We met a lot of people, and we.
So, oh man, you see that would have been a good thing. You know what it was? I think one of the three of you. Well, I'm not friends with you on Facebook, but one of you shared something about the Emprise. I think that's where I've just pulled all of that information from earlier. Maybe I might be wrong, but that makes more sense as to why you would share stuff about that. But okay, so like since now that that's come up, let's shift like towards that.
Sure.
We were semifinalists, so that's what the final 4, 6, 8. How many?
Well, there's 3 categories. There's the strings, the winds, and the open category.
And you're in the open category.
Actually, we were in the winds category. They allow piano.
Oh.
Yeah.
I guess no, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, I mean, competitions are always such a weird thing. You know, you go there, you present what you do, and you can never expect a certain outcome because there are just an infinite number of factors that go into the decisions and you know what kind of space you're going to play in. You know, our category had, out of these 7 groups, 4 were saxophone quartet. There was us, there was a woodwind quintet, and there was a brass quintet.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if you're a classical saxophone player, you have to find some reason to get up in the morning.
Exactly.
Quartets are one of those very few reasons. It's horrible. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. There were... sorry, what were you going to say, Ashlee?
Yeah, and they picked the 3. So 2 saxophone quartets and the brass.
Yeah, they picked, for the final round, they picked 2 saxophone and 1 brass. And they... You know, the saxophones already had more than a 50% chance of showing up to the finals. This is interesting. The space. I mean, the space we played in, you know, was a little dry. But it was a learning experience, you know, to play in any acoustical environment. But you know, it was awesome. There were so many New York groups there. Not a big surprise, but you know, it was like a reunion in some ways.
It was nice.
And
it was really nice.
The New York people are always like, you know we could run into each other the next day. So everyone's really cool and, you know, not about outstaging each other, you know, because all you could do is really do your thing when it's your turn.
It was a great opportunity to see so many amazing ensembles all in one place in a very short period of time. And it was just a little unfortunate that it had to be so, everything had to be so close together. The finals round happened over a 2.5-hour window on the last day of the competition, where they were running the strings finalists, the open finalists, and the winds finalists all at the same time. And so you had to kind of pick and choose. So we didn't always watch the same groups. In that final day, I went to watch all the open groups, basically, and you know, 2 of them were from New York.
And we saw 1 open group.
Yeah, we all saw the Foundry together.
The Foundry, another New York-based group, and then we went and caught the saxophone quartets.
Yep,
in the wind division, just to see.
Just
to see.
Just to see.
Phenomenal.
See what's so fucking great about these bitches. So that's me saying that's not
That is
any.
no way representative.
That's
of
no
the
way
Parhelion
representative
Trio.
of how the Parhelion Trio.
Oh man, either.
I'm just gonna, I'm okay with being blacklisted by everyone, so I'll just like insult people. So like, what do you? So you make the semifinals. You don't get maybe what you were hoping to get out of it. Monetarily. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like maybe not. But what do you take away from something like that?
We took away many things from this.
Yeah.
First of all, I like the openness of this competition. One of the things they emphasized is that this wasn't any year. Obviously, for the monetary amounts being awarded, they had over $200,000 in prizes.
Right.
But aside from that, they emphasize, look, this isn't your regular competition. We encourage, once you're out of the competition, if you don't advance to the next round, or when it's either then or when it's over, that you communicate with your jury panel, that you ask them for feedback, that you speak to them, that you network, and make those contacts. And that's something that most competitions, they certainly don't mention, and sometimes they would prefer that you not do. Mm-hmm. So we took full advantage of that, and we got great feedback.
Well, they actually let you
off.
talk to the judges right after you're disqualified. So that night,
Oof.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't like, we took it for what it was, but that night there was an event at the art museum on campus at the University of Michigan. They had a beautiful spread of food. They treated us really well for the whole competition. And we got to approach the judges and look them in the eye and ask them for feedback, which is pretty cool.
So why do
They
you
were
hate
very
me?
generous. They were very generous.
Yeah,
Very
of course.
Yes.
Of course.
And very helpful. They thought of things that we weren't really thinking about.
And that we hadn't considered before
We
as
hadn't
well.
considered before, yeah.
They also had suggestions as to where to go from here and things to look out for.
Repertoire.
And, yeah.
Ways to prepare, for the next one.
Also, I think one of the best feedback we got from multiple judges are how to, when you're in acoustics that aren't to your advantage for your ensemble, how to compensate for that, and different ways you can approach that.
Yeah, that's going to help us outside of like future competitions. We're not a competition group, and I think a lot of these groups that participate are not. Some of them were, for sure,
Yeah.
already won things, and that's what they do. But a lot of these groups are just here for, this.
It's a weird thing because competitions are a really great way to get funding for things that you might want to do, or a record deal, or a
Management.
Not notoriety. What's the other one? Just like getting your name out there so people know who you are. But it also kind of fosters a weird thing in among musicians,
Right?
Because music can be like a sport, but it's not really a sport.
Mm-hmm.
But
It is a bit of an odd feeling.
yeah, I mean, it's well, I guess audition culture is the same way.
It's like we're all winners, but we're not all winners.
I'm a big basketball fan, so I was watching last night was the last game of the Eastern Conference Finals. Blah blah. It doesn't matter. But the point is the Oklahoma City Thunder were up in the 7-game series 3-1. Like they only needed one more win to go to the finals, and they ended up losing the series. The other team won 3 straight games to beat them. But someone tweeted out afterwards. And they came really, really close to winning it. Someone tweeted out after the game last night that, like, the moral of this story, kids, is that you can work your ass off and play the best you've ever played, and someone who's better is just gonna beat you, and your life is trash. I read that, and I was like, "What up, audition culture? Hello, how are you?"
Well, the really weird thing about this particular competition is in the end, in the grand finals, you have 3 completely different categories competing against each other. In the end, it was yarn wire, and for those of you who don't know what that group consists of, it's 2 percussion, 2 piano, a string quartet, and then a saxophone quartet. So what if each group plays objectively at the exact same level?
Yeah.
then do you pick
You pick the string quartet.
the
'cause that's what happens.
Because
that what
and
happens?
the
Hey, we're a
dead
giant open
composers,
competition
right?
for new ensembles, but we're gonna pick the string quartet for the money. That's me being snarky and bitter. Sorry, Emprise. I don't hate you. You're just
No,
a
we
thing.
love Emprise,
Yeah,
but it was
it's
just
great.
something I was kind of thinking
Yeah, it's like
about.
it's really hard to like when you're looking at. Sure, if you're in an audition situation, you're looking at 15 different clarinet players for a job. There are ways to whittle that down, even with the very best. And when it comes down to it, you can pick someone who, I mean, in an ideal merit-based world, like yeah, you can go with whoever's best sound, best whatever, best fit for this orchestra. But in a thing like that, if you're objectively playing at the same level, like how it comes down to personal taste, and that's kind of a bummer of a thing to base a competition off of. Not that I would know, because I'm sure there was someone who was, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna get off that horse. Anyway, so what do you guys have coming up in the next several months?
This
over the summer into the fall?
We are getting down and dirty and working on improvisation and arranging.
Yes.
Hell yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
Intensive.
So doing all that stuff that we normally have to kind of put to the side during our crazy busy school years, and just breaking everything down to
It's a great.
here's a note, now you play.
When you if you do a lot of teaching, summer's a great time to be able to like look at things that directions you really want to go in,
It really
and
is.
start adding that to what you do. And improvisation, especially with the new music culture and the way it's going, like improvisation has become a linchpin for classical musicians who never thought they would have to improvise. Now it's not over changes necessarily, but it's still like a whole can of worms that no one told us we would have to do. Thanks music school.
That's right.
Man, can you tell I'm really against the musical establishment? Like I'm just like going off. It's crazy. It should be less snarky.
Well, I actually did a lot of improvisation through a musical establishment.
Fair enough.
At NYU. It's where I got introduced.
NYU's weird.
NYU is definitely weird.
Steinhardt's a weird conservatory. Like I can never figure
And there's
out.
like 2 different music schools at
Yeah.
NYU.
Yeah, it's. I have opinions, but I will leave those off because who cares? No one cares about my opinion. And still I'm working towards like concerts for the fall and that kind of deal. Like
Contracts are in the works.
We have a couple contracts in the works. Nothing we can say anything about.
oh,
Yeah.
great.
So,
No, please tell me more about the things you can't talk about. I'll just
What
hold
we
this.
can say for sure
I'll
is
hold
that
this for,
we
like, 4
are working on incorporating at least 1 improvisation per concert.
Nice. That's not exciting. I want to hear the stuff you can't tell me. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That's awesome. So, as far as finding more about your ensemble, you can find find you guys on Facebook.
Yes,
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Parhelion is
We also have a-
Parhelion.
Yeah.
For those of you who can't spell.
And we have a website, parheliontrio.com.
Dope. And
Also Twitter page.
but here's the deal. Do you guys have Instagram?
I can't remember. If
Not
started
one.
or
We had
not.
not one that's active.
Man, that's like
I think we do, but I can't. It's
Instagram
hard
is
to manage
like-
my own Instagram
I know.
and the group
Well,
Instagram.
That's the thing. Like I've started doing like all my podcast stuff on my own personal Instagram, and it's just a hassle. But it's like Instagram is so good, especially for musicians. It's so good because like with this like the hashtagging, you can connect with musicians in like LA or internationally. And of course, a lot of weird sex bots, but mostly musicians. It's really, but it's a hassle, but it's so worth it. And I guess supposedly that's what I'm told. It's supposedly worth it. Anyway.
And check out our videos on YouTube. We have our own channel. We have lots of videos up.
Yeah, we do. Please check out our videos.
Great. Guys, thanks so much for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
Thank you so much
Dan.
for having us,
Thank you,
Dan.
Dan.